This is Do It for a Living, your source for inside information on the future of automotive performance.
The thing about running a racetrack and making it work is you have to think outside the box. If you're just going to rely on the local racing to do stuff, you're not going to make it. I mean, case in point, we're the 5th owner of PPIR, and we've owned it longer than the other 5 combined.
What's holding you back from starting or growing your business into what it can be? Well, if you're listening to this, it's not a lack of information. What you're about to hear is all you need to get motivated and start making waves. Do It for a Living podcast details the journey of today's true players in their own words. Find out how they broke out so you can too. The time is now. The time is always now.
Hey, Do It for a Living community. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. This is Todd with my Shop Assist, and today I have Bob Boileau with me. He is the current president of Pikes Peak International Raceway, just south of Colorado Springs, and I have ventured to that track several times with the Optima Ultimate Streetcar Challenge and always had a lot of fun out there. It's a beautiful facility and great surroundings, and so gotten to know Bob just a little bit over the years through, going out to the track and then seeing him at SEMA and some of the other events. So wanted to get him on the podcast with us to kind of let him tell his story of kind of how he grew up and got into the business and then transitioned to becoming the president of a racetrack. And so really excited to have him on today. So Bob, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing fantastic. Again, thanks a lot for coming on with us. Just kind of to get started, we want to hear kind of the background of you, kind of where you grew up and kind of what you did as a kid. And it doesn't even have to be car related, but if it is, that's always good. So, take us back, where did you get started with cars and kind of growing up?
Sure. My dad started racing in the 60s. In fact, he was on his way to an autocross in 1964 when I came into the world. So I've been around it my whole life. I grew up around SCCA racing. My dad was an avid SCCA racer, and then it was an interesting twist. My dad ended up becoming the chief driving instructor in our region here in the Colorado region of the SCCA, and so we were going to a driver's school where my dad was instructing, and when you get there, you typically go to a racetrack and you bring your family along. So there was a student in the event in a Formula V, and he brought his family along. Well, that's the day that I met my future wife.
Yeah.
So she and I met at a car race when she was 11 and I was 13.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So we've been around it a long time. I grew up around racing. I ended up driving. My father-in-law raced actively for a number of years. My wife raced Formula Vs briefly, and now our kids race. So it's certainly in our blood, and we've been around it a long time.
So did you know you were going to be working in the car industry as a kid?
Well, I think people tend, especially boys anyway, I think they have a tendency, at least initially, to follow in their father's footprints just because that's the path that's paved ahead of you. And that was the case for me. My dad was in the car business, and he was one of the first employees for American Honda in the United States. He was the 6th employee for Honda. Wow. And he built the first Honda race car in America, and that car currently lives in the Honda Museum in Torrance, California. So growing up in the business and being a car nut, because my dad was a car nut, I think it was inevitable that was the path I was going to take.
Gotcha. So did you go to college?
Absolutely. Went to college in Fort Lewis and Durango, Colorado. And when we got done with college, I actually went into the stunt driving business, and I was in California as a professional stunt driver.
Well, then what was the major in college that led to stunt driving? Well,
it was just a business major,
okay.
but the funny thing is again, it was always chasing that passion of driving. Mm-hmm. When I had the opportunity to go out to California through some acquaintances I'd made through racing, to go do this stunt thing. That was what I did. And then again, remember back now, my wife and I met when we were kids. So I'd been in touch with her, and she was finishing up school as well. And so she moved out to California with me, where I was a stunt driver. And then she got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So at the time we were still dating. And so we decided to get married, and we had to deal with this disease. So we ended up moving back to Colorado, because that's where the National Multiple Sclerosis Society is headquartered. Mm-hmm. And both of our families were here in Colorado. So we moved back, got married, and that's when I got back into the car business and left the stunt business. And then I worked in the car business for a number of years, and then I ended up getting in the racetrack business.
So you mentioned to me before we got started, you were working at the Acura dealership. So did you come in as like a salesperson, or was it more of a management role?
No, I was one of the managers.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so kind of take me through, dealing with the Acura team, and then what you guys built with that through the years.
Well, we ran a team for a number of years. We ran a couple of Integras at first, and then one of my tasks that I put upon myself was to get the dealership owner, one of my best friends, to get him up to speed. I decided the best way to teach him was to put him in a Spec Miata. So we also had a couple of Spec Miatas. So for a while we had 3 Spec Miatas, and we had 2 Integra GSRs. And then we added an Acura NSX to the fleet. And then we added a Honda Civic Si to the fleet, and we added an Acura RSX Type S. And so we went racing in SCCA. I got the dealership principal up to speed, and then we went to the runoffs a few times together, and he's still actually racing an Acura RSX Type S. He's on his second car now.
Oh, very cool.
And then that's kind of how it got started. And then during that time, there was a group looking to purchase Pikes Peak International Raceway. And when they looked to purchase it, they came into the area because they thought it would be best to have a local connected person in the motorsport industry to be involved. So they found me, and originally I was hired as the general manager, and then it just kept going from there.
Okay, yeah. So with the actual raceway itself, can you kind of explain, who built it, maybe if and then how it, why it had to change hands, and then
sure
what the actual people, or who the actual people are, or the business entity that owns the track now?
Sure. Yeah, the track was originally a horse track back in the day, and it was called Pikes Peak Meadows. And I remember as a kid driving down to the track in Pueblo with my dad to go to the races, the SCCA races. We would drive past it. It was a horse track. And then in 1996, they started building it. And the builder, if you remember back when they had the earthquake in California during the World Series, and the bridges collapsed on each other.
Yeah.
The contractor that got the contract to repair all that stuff was a guy named C.C. Myers. And C.C. Myers, there was a massive bonus if you got done early with that project, because as you can imagine, the whole city was shut down. Mm-hmm. So sure enough, he got done early, got this massive bonus, and his passion was to build this racetrack. So he bought Pikes Peak Meadows, the horse track, and tore everything down and built Pikes Peak International Raceway. And then the intention at the time, and bear in mind this was in the mid-'90s, that if you built a NASCAR track, they'd bring you a race. So it never quite worked out. The track went through several owners, and ultimately it fell to the lien holder, which was Lehman Brothers at the time. And then so when it was essentially foreclosed on, Lehman Brothers was holding a note on this. And so Lehman Brothers contacted NASCAR and said, we're going to file a lawsuit against you for monopolizing the sport.
not bringing them a track?
Yes, exactly. We have this track. You need to bring us one. You need to bring us an event. And there was a lot of pro races here. IndyCar ran here for a number of years, and NASCAR Trucks ran here, and then the Trans Am series, the MRA or the AMA. So there was a lot of good races here. But I think honestly the fan base just wasn't here, and I wasn't involved at the time. But my speculation is the fan base just isn't in this region of the country to support that type of a facility. So anyhow, essentially Lehman Brothers contacted ISC, International Speedway Corp, and said, listen, we own this thing and you either need to bring us a race, or we're going to file a lawsuit against you for monopolizing the sport, something to that effect. I don't have all of the specifics, but
some legal jargon that a bunch of lawyers
some legal
came up with.
mumbo jumbo. And then essentially what happened is NASCAR at the time didn't want to get involved with a lawsuit with Lehman Brothers, so they bought the track for what was owed on it and closed it. And it sat vacant for 3 years. And then during that time, vandals came in and, typical vandals, they came in and stole copper and just destroyed a bunch of stuff. And the place fell on disrepair for a period of 3 years. And then the group that I ended up working for and now I'm a partner in came in and they made a bid to buy the track, and they closed on it and bought the track in August of 2008, which was probably the worst time in the history to close on a huge real estate project, because we have over 1,200 acres. And
because it's not just the track. I mean, 1,200 acres is a lot of land.
Yes, it's huge. I mean, from the south end of the property to the north end, it's over 3 miles long.
Okay, yep.
So it's a daunting project when you look at it that way. But so what happened is Reef Partners is the group that ended up purchasing the track, and it was a group of 3 individuals that got together and bought it. And then they, as I said, they brought me on. They brought in one guy initially just for the repair stage, where they had to come in and fix all the damages, and they did put together a team of people to basically do this recon on the whole facility, and they did that. And then I came in about 6 months into the project and have been here since, and so I came on in early 2009. And now we're up and running, and we have a ton of business, and we're busy as can be.
Yeah, you turned it around. So did you know the investors, when they bought it, or were they fellow racers or something?
No, I didn't know them at all. As I said, they were angling to get a racetrack at the time. This was just prior to the crash. But, as you know, at the end of 2008, things got tough. But just prior to that, things were still going well. So they closed on it really at a bad time. I mean, they spent all this money and bought this facility, and then the world stopped turning basically for 3 years.
Yeah, if they had waited another 6 or 8 months, they may have gotten a steal on it if Lehman still had the note on it.
That's right. Well, they ended up, closing down in that whole debacle.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah.
But anyhow, things happen for a reason, I suppose. But we ended up, or they ended up purchasing it. And as I said, they brought in a guy that they had known locally, and he kind of handled he oversaw the resurrection of the place. And then they knew that they wanted to have a face of PPIR, and they started sniffing around in the local community, and that's when apparently my name came up, and they met me, and the rest is history.
And they liked you, huh?
Yeah, we got along. And then what happened is, fast forward about 5 years, and then we all, I think, learned how to work a little leaner and a little meaner throughout the recession. And we all kind of got used to the fact that this is the new norm, and guys like you and I still want to go out and play with our cars. So we said, the heck with it. We're just going to go play with our cars again.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So business started going again. And it was a situation where the 3 original partners, they didn't all have the same vision. And I was the one here on the ground, pushing the project forward, and the partners decided to buy out one of the 2 partners, or one of the partners bought out one of the other partners, and then they brought me in as a partner, and kept me around, and it's been a heck of a lot of fun.
Very cool. Yeah. So just kind of want to, briefly touch on, right when you got started there, were things, kind of looking pretty dire? Did, with the recession hitting really hard on a sporting activity that is just extra income,
that relies solely on discretionary income.
Yeah, discretionary income and if people don't know, Pikes Peak International Raceway is south of Colorado Springs, which is south of Denver. So it's a good, I don't know, what would you say, like hour and a half from downtown Denver?
Yeah, that's fair enough. It's probably an hour and a half. Yeah.
Yeah. Were there times where you guys were just like, man, I don't know if this place is going to make it? Was there ever any fear that it just wasn't going to be able to be resurrected? And, how'd you guys get through that?
I don't think so. Basically, we from the first day I got here, from day one, our focus was to not just focus on motorsporting activities, because that's why the track went down in the first place. I mean, they had IndyCar, they had, as I said, they had all these pro series here, and they still couldn't make a go of it. So because of that, our focus was different. The guys that purchased this place originally were real estate guys, and they were looking at it as a big real estate purchase versus a race car track purchase. So we really started thinking outside the box, and we were looking at different things we could do to make a go of it. For example, what's right here in our area? Well, there's several military bases right around Colorado Springs, right around the track. So from Fort Carson to the Air Force Academy to the Air Force Base. So what I did is we started looking around, and there was a lot of companies that did military training in this area because of all the military companies. So I ended up putting a deal together with a local company that does a lot of military training, and the nice thing about that is they took our Monday through Fridays away from us, because that's when they train. They don't train on the weekends. And if you look at it from the business perspective, what does a racetrack have? A racetrack has 7 days a week on a calendar. That's your inventory. You might have 2 or 3 different pieces of inventory. For example, you could have a big parking lot where you could do autocross type things, or you could have the oval or the road course. Well, those are days on the inventory. And then when you look at that, everybody thinks a racetrack, you're going to have races every weekend. Well, if you look at the 7 days in a week, that's the smallest part of the week is the weekends. Yep. So I really focused on the weekday inventory. And by focusing on the weekday inventory, it really helped push our focus on what business we need to go after and what types of businesses could do training during the week. So it comes down to companies that do OEM proving and testing and stuff like that. Companies like Roush Engineering that go out and do shock absorber testing or transmission testing or what have you. Those types of businesses we started going after. And then OEM product launches and, as I said, military training. So we really started pushing that way. And to this day, if you look at our P&L, absolutely the most insignificant thing on the P&L is racing.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Yeah. So that really brings to attention your core competency may be the racing, but that's what's the flashy stuff. But
exactly,
making money on the other stuff.
Right. I think the racing validates the facility, and because people want to go train at a cool racetrack. So I get that. So we still have cool races and we do cool stuff. Like, for example, when you come out and do the Optima Ultimate Streetcar Challenge, that's a cool series. It's on TV and it validates the facility. When we have certain races, when we have the motorcycle races here and the sports car races and the vintage races, again, those validate the facility. But that is absolutely not our bread and butter. So as I said, we really focused on during the week stuff. And then I also started looking at what some of my customers were on the weekends. For example, we have some of the stock car experiences, and I won't name them, but there's a couple of them that people have heard of that came out and they would rent the facility from me, which was our plan originally, was to go B2B, business to business. Mm-hmm. So I would rent the facility to these companies, and then they would come out with their stock cars, and all these people would show up and pay to drive their stock cars. Well, when you look at you're a pretty intuitive guy. You could do the math. You could say, wow, they have 400 people come through at X amount of dollars per person. Now they're bringing in a lot of money. So as a result, there's an opportunity is the way I see it. So we went and bought a pile of stock cars, and we plan on kicking our stock car program off this summer. hopefully this spring, and we're going to do our own stock car driving experience.
Okay, cool.
So instead of me collecting the rental fee, I went from B2B to B2C. So now I'm going business to customer, and then I'll collect all that revenue instead of just the facility rental.
Mm-hmm. But with that comes a lot of headache of getting the consumers and advertising and all that. So it's a trade-off, but you're looking to capitalize on the missed profit from them, that they're skimming off, huh?
Oh, correct. Yeah. If you look at the ROI, I mean, it makes sense to go ahead and pick up a pile of stock cars and market the program and go for those same customers. Obviously they come because, first of all, we're the only oval track in a lot of area, surrounding area. Mm-hmm. So if we have a stock car experience here, whether it be mine or yours or whoever's, it's going to be, people are going to come. So it is a matter of marketing. So you have to have the marketing budget. You have to cover the insurance costs, and you have to hire some guys to maintain the vehicles and so on and so forth. But when I put a pencil to it, it made sense, and my partners and I agreed. So we bought a pile of NASCARs, and yeah. we're gonna go down that road, and that's gonna be cool. That's gonna be fun this summer.
Yeah, I did a supercar, I guess it's one of those where the people come and pay to drive the supercars around the parking lot. They did that like an autocross. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, you guys, or I guess the other people, were doing the stock car deal. So yeah, it was a fun day of, some Lamborghinis and Ferraris with stock cars out on the oval.
Right. And I'd be lying to you if I didn't say I'd looked into the option of doing some supercar stuff, but that's a much bigger investment, believe it or not, than buying some old NASCARs and getting that going.
Yeah, I can believe it. Yeah, I think they had, I don't remember what Ferrari it was, but they had a Ferrari out there and it DB'd a tire.
I think I remember that day.
Yeah, and I was like, and the people didn't, like the other people that were running it, and I was like, well, I'll go get this thing aired up, and man, it destroyed that wheel. Like it still held air and it worked okay, but I mean I don't know how many $1,000 whatever that wheel is, but it was a very expensive random occurrence to have happen, and I was like, oh my god, I think you guys lost all your profit from this day because of that one wheel.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's pretty cool to kind of seeing other opportunities, other business opportunities, and being able to go after those. So one last kind of negative related question. We like to hear kind of something bad that may have happened over the years of you managing that track, and just thinking, just off the cuff, I'm like, yeah, did you ever have any vendors or contractors that didn't lay pavement correctly, or events that got rained out or something like that? And so has there ever been a really bad experience that you have had over the years at the track?
I'm going to knock wood. We've been really fortunate. We haven't had a lot of bad things happen. Off the top of my head, the craziest thing that I think happened was at the time we had K&K insurance, and I've known the guys from K&K for a long time through my dealings in SCCA over the years. And then when we started PPIR, we used K&K. We've gone a different direction now, but at the time K&K had been with us for a long time, and I had Willie B, who's a local radio DJ here on a local radio station, and he's also one of the hosts on the TV show Two Guys Garage. So he's a kind of a celebrity in our world, and his name's Willie B. He's a good friend of mine. He lives up in Denver, and Willie B had this his little group called Colorado Street Outlaws, and they kind of come out and do this same type of a thing as we see on TV, but this no preps type grudge racing. And so we had a group of them here, and two cars took off. We were running 8th mile down the pit lane, and so two cars took off, and one of them got squirrely, the one next to him got squirrely, and these are beautiful older cars. And so this guy, I think he was in a 56 or 55 or 56 Chevy. He got sideways and started flipping over, and the car flipped and flipped and flipped. And I'm like, I didn't think it was ever going to stop.
Yeah.
The windshield, these old cars, remember, I mean, how on the older cars, you pull the windshield in with the rope, you pull the rubber in. So they're not glued in. Yeah. So the windshield, of course, popped right out. Well, at the same time, this was a beautiful car. leather bench seat, and he had upgraded lap belts, and they were bolted to the floor. Well, as soon as the car started flipping, the windshield came out. The back in the big bench seat broke and laid down, and then his seat belts, because we picked it up and looked at it, didn't have washers behind them, so they pulled through the old floor. So this dude is a passenger in there just flipping around. The next thing you know, and I got there was a video of it that someone did filmed from the roof, and they posted it on Facebook, and it immediately went viral. Well, this guy, I talked to him afterwards. He was holding on to the glove box, and his whole body was out the windshield, laying on the hood as it's flipping.
I think I've seen that video now that you mention it, because it's down. It looked like the pit lane. Yeah, I think I have seen that one. Ended up,
when the car stopped, he's laying on the hood.
Yeah,
remember that? Everybody saw it. So anyhow, that was crazy. And like I said, he didn't get hurt. That was on a Saturday night. And then on Sunday, I had to fly out of town. I don't remember where, to a meeting. So I wake up Monday morning in my hotel, and my phone rings, and I look, and it's my insurance agent.
Insurance agent going, I don't think we can do this anymore. Well,
he was funny because he said, so, Bob, what's going on? I'm like, nothing. What's going on, Joe? He said, well, nothing. I said, okay. He said, I saw this video online. Maybe you've seen it. I'm like, nope. Don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. And then we started laughing. He said, Bob, honestly, I want to tell you, I've watched that video at least 5 times, and I wanted to ask your permission if I can use that video as an example of how to do things right. He said, because here's the deal. In our business, crashes are going to happen.
Yep.
He said, and you can't tech that car to the point. I mean, these are street cars, right? The fact that this guy, I'm not going to crawl into your car to see if you've adequately mounted your seat belts. You just have to go on the assumption that they're bringing a car that's prepared to go on the track, right? So he said, so I disregarded that. He said, what I looked at what was the safety standards set up like? And he said, for the burnout, where you had your people staged, he said everybody was back out of the way. They were behind walls. They were in safe places. He said when the crash happened, there was no one out there. There was a fence. He said, and then towards the end of it, when the car stopped, you could see where the ambulance was staged, and the ambulance was immediately rolling. He said, I wanted to tell you that you guys did everything right. So that one really stands out. I mean, as far as just crazy accident here.
Yeah,
in racing, you have stuff happen. I mean, wheels fall off and occasionally cars flip over. It's pretty rare. Motorcycles get laid down. But, I mean, we've been really fortunate. We haven't had anybody really injured. Again, I'm knocking wood. And we haven't had any bad experiences with contractors. We try and use local people that we support local businesses and hope they do the same. So we've been really fortunate. But I think it's because our team really focuses on customer service, and when our customers leave, I want them to be happy and I want them to come back.
Yep, it's a good point. Yeah, it's that it is a testament to the preparation and the safety standards. You take a bad situation that could have obviously gone a whole lot worse, but it was
absolutely
what happened, it was addressed very nicely. So that's I expected you to say that your insurance company was going to drop you, but
yeah, no, I was pretty nervous. I'll be honest, but again, the guy, very fortunately, was not injured, and we do always look at safety first. I mean, you've been out here for our events, and I make sure that the ambulance is staged in a place where he can respond, be it left or right, in case the accidents, wherever it might be. But, when you're at a racetrack, you have an idea where the most likely spot for an incident may be, and you try and stage the ambulance nearby, and you have your crew prepared to stop the event with red flags, and you have your crowds contained. So, you always got to think about the worst case scenario, and there's certainly been some bad things happen at tracks over the years. And as long as you take a proactive look at those and what you could have done differently or better, again, accidents are going to happen. Just be prepared for them the best you can.
Cool. So, kind of moving on, shifting gears here to more positive stuff. What's something, right now going on at the track or that's coming up this year that you're really excited about?
One of the things that we started in 2017, and what we call it here, we have two different things going on. We wanted to do our own version of some car shows. And what I wanted to do is, I'm sure you've been to these, Todd, where you go to these events, you go to car shows, and they're just static car shows, and everyone's sitting around and they're rubbing their car with a diaper, and they're sitting in lawn chairs talking to each other, and that is not for me. I love to go look at cars, but I want to see somebody do a burnout. I want to see somebody drift. I want to see somebody do a drag race. I want to see something. So we came up with this idea of adding a go to some of these shows.
Okay.
So what we did is in April last year, they have this big event in Las Vegas called Viva Las Vegas, and it's kind of a rockabilly type of an event. So I took my whole staff out there and the spouses, and we spent the weekend in Las Vegas, and we kind of scouted out this show. And this show is massive. It's in its 20th season, and I'm certainly no competition for Las Vegas. I mean, Las Vegas speaks for itself, as you know, when we go there for SEMA every year. But I was just looking for some opportunities to have a car show where I could get a bunch of gearheads together and have some fun. So we came up with the idea to do a rockabilly type of an event, and I was going to do it in 2018. And middle of the summer last year, I told my staff, I said, I want to have a rockabilly type of an event, and I want to have it this year. I want to have it, and I picked a date in September, and they said, Bob, are you kidding me? That's in 7.5 weeks. So I said, here's the deal. If we have an event like that, and regardless of how good or bad it goes, one, our customers will have a good customer experience, because that's priority one for us. And two, when we do the big one in 2018, it's going to be better because we already dipped our toes in the water.
Yeah.
So we came up with the concept, and we named it Hot Rod Rock and Rumble. And we hired we had Lee Rocker from the Stray Cats here. We had a bunch of different bands and some rockabilly bands. And it was towards the end of September 29th and 30th. And my goal, my hope, was to get like 100 show cars and maybe 700 or 800, maybe 1,000 people. Uh-huh. Well, we had 502 show cars show up, and we had 4,000 people, and it was a huge success.
That's great.
So now we are planning our Hot Rod Rock and Rumble for 2018. It's going to be a week earlier in September 21st and 22nd. And then basically what we did is I purchased all the infrastructure needed to build the stages and the viewing platforms and camera platforms and all that. So my thought is, when we get these types of events going, why don't we set up all of the infrastructure and do 2 weekends in a row, basically. So we're going to do that for the first time in May, because that way I kind of amortize my setup and strike costs over 2 events in 2 weekends, compared to setting it up for 1 weekend and then striking it again. So in May, we're going to have our first event, which is called Classic Muscle Show and Go, and that's May 11th and 12th. And then the following weekend, we have our second annual now. The
rockabilly one?
No, it's the Into Thin Air Drift Party.
Oh, okay.
We have the FD Pro-Am cars coming out, and so it's the Southwest Drift cars coming. And we're going to have this big import show essentially the second weekend. So we're going to, for the first time, we're doing back-to-back weekends. So May 11 and 12 is our Classic Muscle Show and Go. And then May, 18, 19 is the import show. And then later in September, we're going to do the Rock and Rumble. But so that's really part of what we're doing. And those are exciting and fun because we're reaching out to the local community and the car clubs, and we're getting them out here, and we're doing fun stuff. As I said, we're not going to a car show where we're just going to hang out and look at our cars and rub them with a diaper. We're going to have action. So we have cool stuff going on. Yeah,
that actually sounds like a lot of fun. And that seems to be a theme that's gaining traction, because we interviewed the founder of Grid Life.
Yep.
And he does, time attack and concert and drifting events. And it's like the experience, because I'm with you. I hate going to car shows. Like, the Cars and Coffee here in Dallas is huge, and every time I go, I'm like, why am I even here? It's looking at cars is looking at cars.
Yeah,
it's just standing around in a parking lot. So
no,
I'd much rather.
There's only one place to go look at cars. That's at SEMA, because all the cool stuff's there, and you expect to look at them all. But you can still go out front and watch them doing burnouts and drifts and jump in the trucks and just see some stuff. But yeah, I'm with you. The regular old static car show is dead to me.
So with the muscle car one, is there a racing portion involved? Like, are you doing the 8th mile thing?
Yeah, we did that at Rock and Rumble, and we're also doing it at the Classic Muscle Show.
Okay.
And what we actually did at Rock and Rumble, I'm not sure exactly how we're going to set it up yet for Classic Muscle, but for Rock and Rumble, we built the stage right across the start line of the drag strip, and the band was playing on the stage. The cars did burnouts out from under the stage.
That's super cool.
It was really, really cool. So, I mean, the bands loved it, the competitors loved it, and the fans loved it. So it was really cool. So we're going to do something similar. We're definitely going to have we're going to have cruises around the oval. We're going to be able to do the drag strip down pit lane. Mm-hmm. We're going to have, of course, the normal stuff. We're going to have a swap meet, and we're going to have live music. We're going to have food and vendors. Our go-kart track will be active. We have camping. So for Classic Muscle, it's fun. We came up with a tagline called Burnouts, Burgers, and Brews. And we're going to have the local breweries come out and do a competition for their beer. And we're going to have the local restaurants come out and have a burger contest for the best burger.
Man, I'm going to have to come to that one. Well, I'll just go for a whole week, and I'll do the domestic and the import one.
Yeah, then you'll be here for the import show, because that's always going to be fun. I mean, when you bring out the pro FD guys, it's quite a sight to see.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. Well, very cool. Well, let's just pause for a quick break here, and then we'll be right back.
We all know owning a shop is difficult, so we created My Shop Assist to help you manage the various jobs. Whether you run a machine shop, a performance tuning shop, build off-road trucks, or even do powder coating, My Shop Assist can help you. It is completely online and will help you schedule the jobs, log time on each task, track parts orders, and take pictures of the work. You can even export your jobs from My Shop Assist into QuickBooks as invoices. So if you're interested to improve operations at your shop, check out myshopassist.com to start your 30-day free trial.
Okay, Bob, so we're back, and you've told us about some of the events that you guys are doing, but I kind of want to hear the nitty-gritty ins and outs of the track and how it's grown over the years. So you touched on you becoming a partner and then becoming the president. Was that something that you kind of planned on doing when they came and asked you if you wanted to work out at their facility?
Absolutely. I was clear from the beginning when they were talking with me about it that was my intention.
And so there's 2 of the founding 3 left, and then yourself. Is there anybody else that has bought into the track as a partner?
Nope, just the 3 of us.
Oh, so it's still staying like really close. And do they still live in the Colorado area?
No, I'm the only one in Colorado. Okay. They are both. One of them is they're essentially in Florida. One's in Greenville and one's in Florida.
Okay, yeah. So they're more East Coast side,
Yep.
But do they come in and get to race on the track every once in a while?
They come in now and then and visit, but it's pretty much the ball's in my court, and I'm tasked with making it work.
So that's nice. So they've given you sounds like they're kind of like the silent partner investor type, and you guys obviously have to agree on things to do, but with you being on the ground, they're letting you take full reins of that responsibility.
That's correct. Yep.
And so walk us through, how things have changed over the years. So even I guess it's 4 years that I've been going out there, the facility has changed quite a bit. So what are the things that you have spearheaded and done out at the track to improve the facility and then bring in more competitors and also the different types of events that you guys are doing now?
Well, what we really do is anytime we have any event, I like to, as whatever the event is, even when we have the Optimus Series coming up, we will have a couple meetings leading up to it to make sure we have everything ready that we need to provide for the event. And when you look at Optima in particular, the guys from FM3, they do a great job. They're pretty much a turnkey business. Mm-hmm. Basically, all we need to do is make sure the facility is clean and ready. Then they come in and set everything up. So that one's easy. Now, after an event, we have the same meeting, and we have a meeting. I like to have it 2 days after the event, so everybody had a chance to kind of clear their head. But I also encourage all my staff to take notes throughout the event, and we talk about two things: one, things that went good, and things that went bad. And it could be something as simple as the trash by the restrooms didn't get dumped quick enough, whatever it may be. So we always try and make sure and address all the pros and all the cons that we can after each event, and we keep track of that so that we can always improve the offering for our customers. Now, that example is that's B2B, when I have someone come in and rent the facility. When it's B2C, when it's our own event, be it a Hot Rod Rock and Rumble or the Classic Muscle or our Time Attack series or whatever it may be, then we look at what can we do differently, what can be better. And the common denominator for the first few years was we needed more paving options on the infield. So we spent some time between my track manager, Jared Thompson, and myself and our chief driving instructor, who's my son Tommy, and we went inside and we looked at what options we could pave, what we could do, and we set up cones and we'd drive through these different configurations through the dirt and the grass, and we ended up coming up with some more paving options, and we hired a local company and they came out and did the paving for us. And you drove on some of those new options now. So it's kind of nice because we could literally have, like in our own personal PPIR Time Attack series that we've grown here, which now we average 185 drivers per event, and we have one event per month for 10 months out of the year, and we have a points championship. The nice thing about what we've designed is from last year, 2017 on the new pavement, through 2018, we'll never run the same configuration twice. That's how many options we have. Yeah. So what does that do? That creates more, that's a better experience for our customers. So it's more options. One of the things that we did with our Time Attack series is we set up a practice course. You typically don't get to go to an autocross and have a practice course. You typically you get your 4 or 5 timed runs, and that's it. And then you have to go out if you're at an SCCA event, and you got to go work the corners or work the lot and chase cones. Well, that's a negative. People don't like that, so we don't do that. I hired people and trained them, and that's what they do. They just chase cones and set the courses back up. So I think really what we try and do is we try and improve the customer experience every time someone comes out. We always talk about it. What can we do better? What did we do good? What did we do bad? And we always have that look. How can we make it better for our customers?
And so how many people work out at the track now? Like, I'm guessing are there full-time people and then part-time people that you bring in for the events?
Yeah, right now we have about a dozen full-time salaried employees. And then we absolutely bring in people for the events. Like for our Time Attack series, we bring in I don't know the number off the top of my head. It's really handled by my track manager, but I'm going to say they bring in like 8 people for a Time Attack event. Yep. And then for like the Hot Rod Rock and Rumble or one of those types of events, I mean, we bring in 60 people because you got to have parking staff and you got to have cleanup crews and restroom cleanup crews, trash runners. I mean, there's just a lot to it. So we have a core group of about a dozen full timers, and then we bring in temp staff based on what the event needs are.
Yeah, so there's a pretty large amount of payroll, but I mean, it's a big facility, but still, just it takes a lot of people to kind of organize all that stuff. Again, can you specifically state out the events that you guys host there? So there's, like the Time Attack and then the drifting and the autocross events.
Yeah, I mean, we have SCCA Autocross comes out, the SCCA Solo. We have the BMW Club Autocrosses, the Corvette Club Autocrosses, Porsche Club. And then we have our own events. As you know, we have our own show and go events for car stuff. And then on the racetrack, we have the RMVR, the vintage racers that come out. We have the NASA comes out and runs on the infield. We have the MRA, the motorcycle group that comes out and runs. We have our own stock car stuff, and one of the other things that we're working on now that we haven't, of course, we have our Time Attack series, which has gotten big, but and then we have product launches, and then during the week, the military trains on the track and does stuff. But then one of the things that we're working on right now is a different category. I started to mention it earlier, but I call it our human powered category. And that's like the mud type of a run.
Okay. Yep.
So, and we have this 1 mile oval. So one of the things that we're getting ready to do this summer is called the 5280 chug, and it's going to be sponsored by the local breweries. And it's just one lap around the track, and there's going to be 3 stations where you get to stop and have a beer. And then after it's over, you're going to come into the infield, and we're going to have concerts, and everybody's going to play and have fun. We'll have the go-karts running and probably the drift cars giving drift rides.
So it's and a lot of stuff. So you've really, pushed the envelope on the number of events, and you're actually investing money to develop and host your own events. So your own branded events. So does that make it, does it make the advertising a little easier? I guess the more people that you get out there coming to stuff, the farther reach that you have for, oh, hey, we're going to start this new event. Come check it out kind of deal.
Exactly. And really in this day and age, the social media is such a big part of advertising that no one foresaw 10 years ago. So we have experts that give us advice in that area. The thing about running a racetrack and making it work is you have to think outside the box. If you're just going to rely on the local racing to do stuff, you're not going to make it. I mean, case in point, we're the 5th owner of PPIR, and we've owned it longer than the other 5 combined. So we're the 5th owner, we're the longest owner, and we're the most successful owner. So, and I think it speaks volumes as to our mindset. I say this a lot, and people at first think I'm kidding, but I mean it sincerely. I say, the only thing that limits what we can do here is your imagination.
Yeah, really just you can just let it run, and whatever idea you have, we can do it.
You throw a crazy idea at me, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to weigh the liability.
Yes, yeah.
And regardless of what you do, you insure it. So weigh the risk, and then look at the potential liability, and then what the ROI can be. And I mean, I'm all about it. Let's do something crazy.
Has there ever been any interest to utilize the land for like the off-road truck guys?
No. I'll tell you why I had such a quick answer to that is we have a lot of acreage, and as soon as you go out there and you blaze a trail, you're going to have to put a fence around it and patrol it every weekend because inevitably the kids are going to go out there in their quad runners, and then someone's going to break their neck. And even though they passed the no trespassing signs, I'm going to have to go defend it in court.
Yep.
So it doesn't interest me.
Yeah, it's not something you're going to deal with.
Nope.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the logical answer to that question. Just the reward does not outweigh the risk there.
The risk versus reward. I mean, you've got to take everything and you put it on a scale, and as soon as it tips left, you go. If it tips right, you don't.
Yeah. How did the deal come about with the Volkswagen cars? Because the last time I was there was a mile by a quarter mile of illegal diesel Volkswagens out on your facility, and that must be a huge, that's a utilization of the land that doesn't get, used for anything. But, where did that come from?
Well, the whole 200 acres to the north of the racetrack was always it's a parking lot. That's what it's zoned as is overflow parking. And when that situation came about, with the company you mentioned, they needed a place to store some cars. They needed places all over the country, and they were actively looking for places where they could store them, where they'd be secure. So they contacted a lot of racetracks because racetracks typically have a lot of property. And PPIR, as well as some other tracks around the country, were chosen, and they call them processing centers. But it's where, we were fortunate because we had 200 acres available, and they needed to put a bunch of cars in this region of the country, so we made a deal.
Yeah. So, and then you just leave them. You just have to watch them and let them figure out what to do with those vehicles. Yeah, because the Texas World Speedway down in
TWS has a bunch out there.
Yeah, and they also got the Hurricane cars as well, and that track. I wish you guys had come and bought that track, because that one, they park the cars on the track because that track it's dead now. They're not doing anything anymore, and it's a big shame because it was a really fun track to go to.
No, that was location. A fun track. Yeah, it was.
And I have 1.5 laps there. That's it. 'Cause I got around one warm up lap, and then I lost a transmission back in like 09 or 08, and I never got to go, and I'm really sad that I never actually got to race that track. But yeah, it would have been nice to have an investment team come in and actually do something with it. So that's really sad.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you have to choose your battles, and we chose PPIR as our battlefield, and we fight for it every day, and we keep pushing because no one said it would be easy, and we keep coming up with ideas and vetting them and going for it. So it's been fun.
So touching back on the revenue model for the track, you mentioned that, far and above the company contracts to utilize the facility during the week, they make up the bulk of the revenue for you guys. And so then when it comes down to events, it sounds like you guys are shifting constantly towards hosting your own stuff, not having other people rent out the track. Is that, are you trying to increase, does it offer up an increased revenue for you because you're now in control of how many ticket sales there are? And then with those events, is it mostly on the people that come to the event to pay, to participate, or is it like the spectators that you make more money on?
It really depends upon what the event might be. If it's going to be a stock car type of an experience, there's no spectators. People come and pay to play. Mm-hmm. If it's like the Rock and Rumble, for example, again, we had 500 show cars and we had 4,000 spectators through the gate. So,
and both of those are paying people,
correct?
Right? In a different tier.
Yeah, correct. It really comes down to this. Let's just say to arbitrarily choose a number. Let's just say the track were to rent for $10,000 a day. So on a weekend, I could get $20,000 if I rented it to you, because you're going to come out and you're going to do a balloon, mm-hmm. A water balloon throwing contest, let's just say. So you rent the facility from me for $10,000 a day. So I, as a facility, get $20,000, okay? But for you, over your 2 days, you're going to expect, let's just say, 2,500 people per day that are going to come pay you to throw these water balloons. And each of those people pays $25. Well, you're bringing in $62,500 a day, and I'm getting 10 of it. Yep. So you're getting $50,000. And what is your expense? You're going to have some sort of marketing expense. You're going to have some minor level of insurance, and you're going to have, the expense
staff,
of I mean, so if you look at the model, I could do the same event. I could do the water balloon throwing event, and I'm going to collect the whole $125,000, which would have included my rental. So for me, it makes far more sense to go ahead and take the risk. Now there's risk. If I would have had Rock and Rumble and I spent, let's say, $50,000 to put it all together and market it and build the stages and no one showed up, well, now I'm going to make $0. I'm going to lose $50,000, right? So it's really kind of risk versus reward, and I'm not afraid to take some risk, but you got to be smart about it. So like in your example with your water balloon throwing contest, what your risk is you're going to risk the $20,000 in rental if no one shows up and all your hard costs, right?
Yeah.
So, so it's just a matter of, it's easier for me to take that risk because really the $10,000 track rental in this discussion, in this example, is an opportunity cost for me. So that really, I'm going to pay for this place to be here 7 days a week regardless, right?
Yeah.
So for me, that's an opportunity cost, right? So then it's just really the hard costs of facility staff or equipment, staff, and marketing. So it's easier for me to break even on an event than you because I own the facility.
Mm-hmm. So for, promoting those type of promoting those type of events, mm-hmm. What are you guys doing specifically? Are you doing paid advertising on Facebook? Are you going to other events and handing out flyers? How are you guys getting people to come out to the track?
Yeah, the answer is all of the above. I mean, we certainly do social media advertising. We do guerrilla marketing where we go to events and we hand out flyers. And there's in certain instances we do a lot of radio. We've done TV. We do billboards. It depends upon what the event is that we're pushing, and each one kind of has a different marketing model. But certainly we have to. You got to look at what your target audience is, and you got to find a way to go to them. Like I know for Rock and Rumble, that is not really a social media driven market
it's
because
probably be radio and
exactly. So in billboard stuff, exactly. And most importantly for that particular one is going to the shows and handing flyers to the people that have the types of cars you want to have at the event. So the answer is yes, all of the above. How do we market these events? We look at what each one is, and we go after that. They're all unique. They all get marketed in a unique way.
So do you have a marketing director?
Yes.
And then does that person, is it multiple people, or, if it's that one person, was it somebody that came from a marketing background?
Yes.
With a bit business education in that?
Yes. What we did is we sniffed around the local community again, because I like to stay local with stuff. Because I feel if I hired you to come in and do it because you live in Texas, you wouldn't have the history of knowing so-and-so and the one time we did this. Whereas if I went to Texas and said, I want to do something and you help me, you're going to have that local Rolodex that you can reach into, right? So so we looked around locally and we found the right person that was working here in the industry for a number of years and that had the right marketing connections and the right friends and partners to go make radio buys and TV buys and knows who to call and knows who to go to lunch with. So, it's just business. You just find the person that's going to fit your model. I mean, for me, the most important thing is, and it's been difficult over the years, is to find the right team of people that have the same enthusiasm that I have for this facility and for this business. I've made some crazy hires that weren't good, that I thought were going to be good, but I've also made some amazing hires. I mean, right now I have never been happier with our team than today. I mean, our team is absolutely phenomenal.
That's great. That's really good to hear. Yeah, it takes a long time to build the team like that, but that's
sure
been a goal
does.
of yours.
It sure does.
And so, what are you guys looking for in the future? What's like the 1 year plan for improvement? A couple of events, is there anything big in the pipeline? Sure.
I mean, for this year, it's, we're going from one show and go event to three. And we're going to add some human powered events in the stock car experience. Now, that's this year's plan. Moving forward from that, I mean, if you want to hear the dream stage, we have a lot of property. One of the things that's absolutely on the radar, I want to build a 3rd mile dirt oval. I want to build a dirt track because I think that's there's a lot of interest in it in this area. I think there's a need. If we built a first class dirt track right here on property, right on I-25, I think it would be very well received. It's something we've talked about for a number of years, but as everybody knows, the economy still isn't up until now, and looks like it's turning around. It's been tough. So, everyone says, oh, you talked about building a dirt track. Why aren't you going to build it? Well, because it's going to cost $3 million.
Yes, it's a huge investment.
Yeah. So I'm all about doing it, but I want to do it when we're ready to do it right. Because anything we do, we're going to do better than anybody else, or we're not going to do it at all.
That's great. Yeah, really good to hear. And the dirt track stuff is something that, I grew up seeing it. I, grew up in a Dust Bowl town in West Texas, and we had a dirt track that we'd go to for like birthday parties and stuff like that. But I always forget how big it is until I go to PRI.
Right. Oh my gosh. Right.
Like half of the cars there are dirt track cars.
Absolutely. But then now again, take off your racer hat and put on your opportunity hat. Because once again, you're talking about the dirt track racers on the weekends. So now if I have a dirt track out there, what can I do with that during the week? You see?
Yeah, it makes it pretty tough.
There's some options there. I mean, the military guys might want to go out there and do some stuff. Some proving guys might want to go out there and do some stuff. We could go out there on certain weekends and do some sort of a mud event. Who knows what the options are? So, I like to sit back and say, okay, great. We have this chunk of pavement. What can we do? Let's make a list. Let's have a brainstorming session. So now all of a sudden we have this 3rd mile dirt track. What can we do? Clearly we can do dirt track races, and we can bring in the World of Outlaws, and you can do the local stuff. But what else can we do? Let's keep thinking beyond that.
Yeah, for the big chunk of the week, the 5 days.
Yeah, that's your bigger inventory. So that's the way I look at everything. You can't just be, so narrow-minded that, we're going to build a dirt track and we're going to have dirt races. Okay, that might well pay for the track. Maybe so. That's great. What else can we do?
Yeah. You got to have a lot of other options with. If it's a dollar amount as big as you say it is to build something like that.
Sure.
Oh, geez. So, if you would like to get, one little bit of, a little nugget of insight, is there, something that you can suggest to, the listeners and the owners of shops and maybe even other facilities to kind of get them motivated and think of something they can do to improve their situation?
As I said, it really comes down to, for me, thinking outside the box, reinventing yourself. I say this too. It's funny. It's cliche. I say to stay relevant, you got to stay relevant. That's kind of a tough statement, but you always got to think outside the box. You always got to stay current. You got to figure out if you can stay ahead of the next trend, you're always going to win. And then besides that, it's just make sure you're not going to stick your neck out too far. You always got to weigh the liability, because we live in a sue happy society. So just make sure that you're doing everything as safely and as properly as possible, because as I said earlier, things happen at racetracks. Just be prepared to take care of it in the event that something bad happens.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So, just kind of wanted to close out here with some real quick answer questions. Is there any product that you've seen in the last year that, was really kind of game changing or you thought was really interesting?
Not really. We see so much stuff out here. I think for me, and this, when you go to SEMA or PRI, you see a lot of cool stuff. But really what we see here is we see the new cars come get launched, and stuff like that. So we always get to see the new cool stuff before anybody else sees it. There's a couple cool track products that we've seen out here. I mean, right now, it's kind of boring stuff. We look at the new coolest timing and scoring equipment and the new coolest Christmas tree from Porta-Tree for drag racing and, different things like that. So, we see so much cool stuff out here that you kind of become numb to it.
Yeah, there's one thing, the live telemetry data. It's I saw one company that was doing video feeds at a Super Lab battle a couple years ago, and then I've been seeing some Facebook advertising for some, I guess they're like boxes, like ECU boxes or something that'll transmit the data. That is something I would think would be pretty cool for the people watching their friend or family or significant other doing your stock car, kind of event. Oh, look, he's doing 150, whatever he's doing.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, we do live timing and scoring, and it's on an app. For our Time Attack series, and you can. So what's nice, because when you have 185 drivers and everybody's getting 5 timed runs, you can just pick up your smartphone, and you can look to see how you're doing in class or how your buddy's doing. But at the same time, if you knew we were racing and you're like, man, I really want to know how so and so's doing, even from Texas, you can pull up the same results and get it. It's kind of like the what is it, MyLapse or
the race monitor.
Race monitor, that's it. You can pull that up, and like when I had my friends racing at the runoffs last year, and I could pull that up, from here at my desk, and I could watch to see how they're doing in qualifying. So I agree with you. Some of those tools are really nice because it does allow you to connect with people that are not just here potentially watching as spectators or as competitors, but also even if you're in another state or another part of the world, you could keep an eye on it as well.
Mm-hmm. What may be some software programs that you're using? I guess really comes to mind is, to help manage the team of people that you've got at the facility.
Yeah. See, now you're dipping into where I defer to my people, because I always joke and say that I'm not good at stuff. I'm not techno savvy. I don't know what all the different pieces are that we're using right now. I know that They changed a couple things over the off season that I said, yeah, that looks cool and user friendly. Go ahead and get that. So I don't know all the different things that they use.
Yeah, and if you don't have to, that's okay. I see a lot of the collaboration. We actually use a couple softwares for our software company that are, just make life a lot easier, where you can just send messages and information back and forth. So was just curious if you were using any of them, but it sounds like your role there is the high level thinking and the direction giving.
Yep.
Not the nitty gritty stuff.
Well, no, I mean, I get glimpses of it, but you got to try and keep that 30,000 foot view to keep the ship moving.
Yep. So, I've seen you've got lots of very interesting little race car projects. Is there any physical tool that you like using the most? Whenever you're tinkering on those, your Mazda powered,
thises or that's.
Yeah. Whatever you decided you wanted to put it in that week.
I'm a fortunate guy in that I have a really nice shop at my house. I have a 3,000 plus square foot garage where I can go out there and tinker, and I've got lifts and all the tools. And to me, the most important tool is having a warm shop, because we live in Colorado. It gets cold. Mm-hmm. But there's my latest gadget that I like playing with are these dimple dies, because dimple dies make some cool stuff with metal. For me, I'm a fabricator. I'm not a mechanic. I don't know how to, and I don't even touch wiring. So I like to fabricate and build things. So for me, I like my tubing bender, my JD squared tubing bender, and I like my notcher, and I like my Bridgeport, and I like my welder and my dimple die set. I just like to go out and play with metal. That's my release.
Yeah, that can be a lot of fun. I keep looking at the dimple die sets. I've got, some ideas of stuff that I want to make, and I just can't justify the cost at this point. They're still, I guess I could get like one or two of them, but they're pretty pricey because it's a nice, they're really nice kits.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. So, and then having a brake and a shear and a roller, I like to go out. Like I said, the nice thing about playing with metal is if you screw it up, you can just cut it off and weld something else on.
Another one, yep. So, if you're going to go out and get the groceries today, what is your daily driver car? Not a race car.
So today, I'm a fortunate guy. I have a lot of different cars to choose from, and so today I drove my M3, my BMW M3 to work. But there's days I'll drive my 67 International, and then there's days if it's snowing, I'll drive my Honda CRV or my GMC four-wheel drive. So it just depends upon what the weather's doing and what my mood is. But
the M3 sounds like a nice one. That's good, comfortable car.
And then of course I'll jump in my Miata with the power hardtop and put the top down if it's nice out. So it just depends.
Kind of to end here. Where do you see the future of automotive performance going?
I think the whole industry, and if you look at the Good Guys example, Good Guys is the granddaddy of them all, and they've done a phenomenal job for a long, long time. And then what they're doing is they have now the Good Guys Autocross, and that's really becoming a bigger part of their events in their vendor row. And then you look at guys like Jimmy Day and FM3 and what they're doing with Optima. And Optima is really an aggressive company in the Optima search for the ultimate street car. Again, what is the thing there? It's a autocross driving portion. And then you look at what our success has been with Hot Rod Rock and Rumble. It's a car show with the go portion. So I really think the future is moving more towards activities and people enjoying what they've built versus just sitting around and looking at it.
Yeah, it's interesting that is the driver experience is becoming more and more focused for a lot of these events. Even with it's kind of good timing with the onset of driverless cars coming our way for sure.
Really though, we said it earlier, and it's such a simple formula. I don't want to go stand around and look at other people stand around looking at cars. Mm-hmm. I want to go watch a car do what it's meant to do, which is be driven.
And how do we connect with you and your company, like your website and your Facebook pages?
Yeah, it's easy. It's just ppir.com, and our Facebook is Pikes Peak International Raceway, and then it has links to our other Facebook pages like the PPIR Time Attack page. But ppir.com, if you go there and you click on the calendar, you can see what's coming up, and on each of the dates it'll have the different websites for the different events, like the Hot Rod Rock and Rumble event and the Classic Muscle event. It's all on there.
That's fantastic. Well, again, I wanted to thank you for taking some time and telling us about your history and the track. It's a great facility, and I definitely recommend anybody to, if you're going to be traveling to Denver anytime, be sure to check out the track and maybe spend a day or a half day out there and go enjoy some activities.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks a lot, Bob. Well, have a good one.
You bet. Thank you for your call.
Thanks for listening to Do It for a Living. You can find out more about this guest, this show, and even details about what we just talked about at our website. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/doitforaliving and tell us who you want to hear from. And most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Click subscribe. Do it now. Seriously. I'll wait while you grab your phone. Open up the podcast app. Tap the subscribe button. When you subscribe, you help us gain momentum and attract more high-level guests.